You can view the video of this podcast on Jazz Cabbage's YouTube or Facebook pages. Congratulations, Mike. I haven't had a chance to say to you, congratulations for pushing on for a case that you could have begged out at any time, and you decided to drive it all the way because you knew it was important for people beyond yourself.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that in a second. But Mike, let's first talk about like what you're doing now, like how you're participating in the world with hemp and your activities and stuff like that. You have some cool shit going on.
Yeah, so we're still running our clinic, the Center for Compassion. We're still doing medical marijuana certifications, encouraging people to really get their cards, keep their cards. The benefit still of the original program, our original law, the law that we fought for. The state keeps trying to take our laws and change them up and make them to what they want them to be. And, you know, I'm still trying to make sure that we remember the original act that we, the people, passed and not let that get lost. You know, we know the caregiver system's kind of always under attack, and one way to really fight that is to keep people with their cards, not let the number of cards, you know, drop that are of registered patients each year. And then with that, we do our CBD products. So we run our clinic and we sell our CBD products. We also work with 1-to-1 ratios. We got a lot of different genetics and seed stock for 1-to-1s and CBD. But really focusing on the genetic sides with hemp, selling a lot of clones. We even have been looking at selling clones to licensed facilities as well, you know, just to help them get some of the good Michigan genetics, keeping them in rotation, stuff that people are used to seeing and having. You know, so those two things are really the sum of what I do as a business wise. It just helps me to be able to continue the activism. You know, keeping that side going. Activism doesn't pay the bills. Many of us on here know that. We've been years and years of activism, like, you know, and now it's getting harder and harder where we could at least sell weed, you know, cannabis, medical cannabis, you know, to our friends and family and, you know, things of that nature. Well, you know, as we encourage people to grow their own, we're getting less and less, you know, traffic into the shop. So it's just continually learning how to adapt with this ever-changing and ever-evolving industry. You know, we really do encourage selling them the plants, teaching them how to grow their own medicine, but we're there for them in their in-between times when they can't take care of themselves. You know, and that's always been my focus. Many of you know this 12 years that I've had, you know, been involved in the medical cannabis space with a, you know, legal or business standpoint, doing certifications. Excuse me if it's kind of hard to hear. I just left the dentist not long ago. So, but the, you know, with that, you know, it's always been serving the people, serving our community, trying to make sure that we have safe access. You know, I really have a unique loophole where I get to still work with caregivers and caregiver product. Don't know how long that'll last, but because I'm a certified medical assistant and we do the clinic and the CBD aspect, my township has left me alone. Traverse City is in the mix of all these lawsuits over recreational now because they let the 13 cannabis shops come into Traverse City. You know, my township, all they've done, they're like, we're hands off. We know you've been at this for a long time. You know, you have the, you know, the legal business aspect of doing the clinics, you know, and all they send me is a tax bill. And this year they actually sent me some paperwork to be tax exempt within the township, saying as long as you have less than this amount of equipment in the building, I think it was under $80,000 worth of like, what's the word I want right now? Assets in the building, that it would be tax exempt. So I'm really lucky with what I have established. By going to school and getting that degree as a certified medical assistant has really helped me to be able to stay in the field and compete as all these licensed facilities are coming on board. You know, we at least have a place. We have the opportunity to work with a lot of them because, you know, especially right now in Traverse City, they're stuck in medical. So they need their patients to keep their cards in order for them to be coming into their shops also. So, you know, I feel like we at least have a couple years left of being able to do certifications. We take it a step farther and really breaking down and getting custom treatment plans for people, guiding them through each step of the way through the process. So, you know, that kind of leads into the, I guess, the case is where we're at. You know, this is a case, it says right in there that it was mute as far as my decision went.
So meaning like you were already over it and you could use cannabis again, and it wasn't an issue at that time anymore.
Yeah.
But you're still concerned about the fact that you even had to do that, and the other people that might have to go through that.
And Michael Thue was worried that they might just throw it out because it would become a mute case. We had to address that before going into having to go to court. So he was prepared to be able to fight that if it was addressed.
It's similar to that, to the standing issue that we talked about with the descheduling case that Comorn is also involved with, where they say, well, it hasn't hurt you. You're not being hurt or affected by it right now, so you don't have standing to be able to really bring this case. They were trying to, it's a version of that they were going to try to do to get rid of this case.
But with my case, they said that because of it being that most misdemeanor probation cases are only a year period, the likelihood of somebody else taking it that far was highly unlikely, and that they said that it needed to be resolved. So we got a 3-0 unanimous decision out of the Court of Appeals, which in the past, those of us, Jamie and Rick, we know that the Court of Appeals hasn't always been in our favor. Like they've made us go to the Supreme Court on a number of issues. And then a couple people called the prosecutor to ask if the prosecutor was going to appeal it to the Supreme Court. Interlochen Public Radio actually called the prosecutor, as well as an activist in our community that's, you know, been on top of Traverse City stuff. You know, so it's really good news that it's the final law of the land now for Michigan. And it's something that sets precedents not only in Michigan, but that will be cited by attorneys in other states as well. And hopefully that we won't have to hopefully patients that end up in this situation in the future won't have to be filing a separate motion and paying an attorney to be able to use their cannabis. Hopefully the courts are just allow it now, and stop making us fight for our right. So I got to talk to Comorn a little bit about how that, you know, applies. You know, is it a direct law change, or are patients all still going to have to petition for that right to use cannabis? But it seems like it should be taken off the general paperwork that just says no cannabis use is allowed. So
on I'm sure Thursday night, Planet Greetrees 8:00, hosted by attorney Michael Comorn, there will be a little bit more in-depth discussion and legal discussion, you know, about these implications. But yeah, the idea that a medical patient for sure can't be denied using medicine on probation is the law of the land, and that prosecutor said that she was not going to appeal that to the Supreme Court. One of the follow-up discussions is whether or not, because the language is the same in the MRTMA, whether or not it should automatically apply to that, or if it's going to have to be challenged and, you know, go up the ropes again. So
when you say the MRTMA, what you're really saying is that it currently applies to just the 300,000 people registered as patients, but it should apply to every adult 21 or over, because the MRTMA is a legalization program. So as long as you're legally allowed to use cannabis, you shouldn't have it prohibited on your prohibition or your parole.
So what they're standing on.
This is where marijuana is different as medicine versus adult use, because you can drink alcohol and it's a privilege that you're taken away because it's part of your punishment. So when you need it medically, it is absolutely necessary as part of your medicine. But when you just want to have fun, when you were a bad boy or girl, it's time for you to, you know, learn that's your debt to society, why they have that imposement. They can take away your right to drink alcohol. So when we regulate marijuana like alcohol, which was the intent of the MRTA, was to regulate marijuana like alcohol, that's the, you know, part of the punishment. So I think that it's significant that this is a patient right that we have, and patients need this to live. It's not just because we want to recreate. And I really thank you, Michael, for going on this long fight that didn't personally affect you, and how selfless this was, and how incredible. I also want to give props to him too for I got to go to the ASA conference, and he helped represent Michigan. And I was so proud to work with you and to walk the halls of Congress with you, and to hear you speak and share your story at the conference, and to hopefully make those connections that you did with your power with the hemp, and your degree, that you became a medical professional. And I'm just so proud of the work you've done and everything. And I congratulate you and thank you for what you've done.
Thank you for your work also, Brandy. It was a pleasure being there with you. Having somebody else from Michigan to help me do it. You know, but they did also, to add in, they recited in the ruling the language also that includes like licensing and sanctions from licensing boards. So it did reiterate also some degree of safety implications for employment. And that's something else I need to kind of dissect with Comorn and see what that, you know, how much that carries over. But it is reiterated in the decision that
would be interesting, because, you know,
disciplined or sanctioned in any way, even from licensing boards. And
right. And that was, you know, there's the Casillas case, which, you know, was the first stab at trying to solidify that as, you know, being protected in law. And then that went sideways and went to federal courts and didn't work out in our favor. So it would be cool if something like that has been.
That was
come back.
Casillas versus Walmart, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
Joseph
imagine
Cassius.
like fighting Walmart.
Well, they went after the manager who fired him at first, but then that turned into he's just a puppet of the corporation. The corporation is out of state, so now it has to go to federal court. And then they didn't give a shit about our state law when it came to cannabis here, so that didn't get us anywhere.
There's been quite a few instances where we would have prevailed had state law been honored, but instead the judicial system chose to put it federally. I can think of the Duval case, the Basor case, Casillas. There's many others where they've elected to let the prosecution go national, and in other words,
Annie
people
Trevino
get jammed up. Yeah.
Right.
beat the state many times, and then they didn't dig that. So
Yeah, they don't like when that happens. I'm worried a little bit over here myself. What's next? They don't like losing.
No, I heard that for years about Big Daddies, how even after Big Daddies was shut down, there were still investigations going, and that was a specter that haunted me. And you know what I'm talking about, Michael, when you have the suspicion in the back of your mind that at any time, you know, suited gentlemen with shiny shoes are going to come in a group of 3 and your ass is going away, that weighs on you. There's no peace. There's no true peace when you think that could potentially happen at any minute.
No, and that's something I say that people don't really understand what it really takes to be an activist and what it really takes to fight them and get change to happen and occur. You know, I've stood in front of a judge since I was 17 years old, quoting scripture, quoting law, and still having to go do my time. You know, I've seen a lot of shit. I've been put through a lot of shit. It forced me to make some other bad decisions just to be able to keep getting our cannabis and keep using. But I've claimed medical use since I was 16 years old, you know. So it is, you know, and because of that background and things that it led to, I've had my encounters with the feds. Like prior to cannabis use, I don't have the best record. Unfortunately, you know, I had a period of my life where I sold cocaine, and because I couldn't afford to buy cannabis. And that's how I was able to keep my habit up of cannabis that I felt that I needed to function properly and to stay off the pharmaceuticals. Because of that, some of my friends did a lot of time. I was always the little guy that, you know, I knew kind of my limits. I knew how to stay in and out and, you know, keep your tight circle. And I never got convictions out of that. Luckily, God always, I say, put me in jail to get me away from certain periods where I was actually incarcerated for my fleeing and eluding during the indictment period that had come down on that cocaine case that had took my last friends down. So like I had caught a stupid fleeing and eluding that I outran the police because I lost my driver's license for my last possession of marijuana case. So it was like, they're just like the stupid things that rack up and spiral in that can lead people into probation. Like it can be anything sometimes. that get you in trouble, and now you're stuck in a court system that's a big merry-go-round and a circus, and they're really hard to get anything accomplished with. You know, personally, this case from the very beginning, you know, I was able to really hold my ground because it's a misdemeanor. You know, what's the worst they can do? Like a year in jail? So I know that's not happening. And so from day one, I told the magistrate, she went through bond conditions and she says, you're not allowed to use marijuana. I'm like, hold up right there. Like, how can you tell me that you're not allowed to tell me that anymore? And the prosecutor scuffed and he kind of laughed at me. And I cornered him out in the hallway. He was talking to another attorney. I'm like, did you laugh at me in the courtroom? And he's like, yeah, I thought you were being rude. And I'm like, well, Dig, I wasn't being rude. I held my ground. I got the judge to agree with me. You didn't like it, but I got my way. You know, she put it in there that they knew I would drive dirty because I was a medical marijuana patient. Now, they weren't okay with it and they expected my levels to go down, but I at least got her to understand that I would be dirty for a while until we went in front of the judge. Went through the same thing when it came to like a pre-sentence investigation about cannabis. I was like, you guys don't have this right. It came into sentencing and the judge says, you got to do 30 days in jail or do a year probation and quit smoking medical marijuana. And I just went off on him, like, you don't have that right. Like, and I started citing all this stuff. And he's like, why are we talking about marijuana? I said, because my PSI says do 30 days in jail or quit smoking weed. Like, that's not, you lost that option in 2008 when we passed the Medical Marijuana Act. You don't get to tell me that anymore. And all they could ride on was a circuit court policy from Judge Powers, who's been off the bench for the last 6 years. He's not even on the bench anymore. He doesn't even have a job in Traverse City and Grand Traverse County. And they're still riding on this policy that he wrote 6 years ago. And it was really so sad that they knew they had no real leg to stand on. I believe Michael Thue told me they did not even write a response to this Court of Appeals. That's why they have no legal ground to even file appeal to the Supreme Court.
Right, they didn't mount it. They didn't mount
the Court of Appeals.
That's terrible. That's terrible, Michael. Well, it's great. It's great. But
Hey, Michael.
what a crappy way to execute their job.
Hey, Michael, I have a question for you. First off, thanks for all the hard work you've done, and unfortunately, you got tied into all of this. But I'm grateful that this change in law occurred. But does this court decision apply to people out on bond right now?
So it's, as I believe most Court of Appeals cases, I don't know if there's a time frame. So that would be something we'd have to check with. I don't know if there's any kind of a time frame before it goes into like an effect or to set precedents. But I mean, it is the law now. So it's like, it's on the books that I've told other friends of mine, like, if your card is valid, you can pretty much walk, like Cormon's words to me in a text message is you can walk in and tell the judge and your probation officer to fuck off. They don't have the right to do.
Cormon's a little more radical than a lot of attorneys.
Figuratively, right? It's not encouraging people to actually.
I like it. That was funny.
No, that's
Love the word.
You have to use your choice of words and live with them. But
that's true.
Feel that.
We've been talking for a long time about reasons why you should keep your medical marijuana card active, even though we have adult use in Michigan. Medical, first of all, establishes so many different rights and protections when you're driving and things like that too. But this is yet another
Some
reason.
things have been decided under the medical scenario that should be the case for the legalization law, but that is not official yet. So you take your risk at that. So I think that I'm not positive, and I guess, again, Thursday night for an in-depth legal discussion on all this kind of stuff. But there's probably like a 30-day period in which there could be reconsideration asked by the prosecutor on that decision or something like that? I know that the prosecutor said that they're not going to, but there's probably a
There's a
time
law.
frame where some things could happen, and it has to be waited out until it becomes official. That's probably true.
A waiting period until implementation of the new ruling. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, you can effectively imagine nobody wants to be the prosecutor that tried to slide one in just before the deadline. What a crappy way to live your life. If you're so hungry to punish people that you try to buck the law in order to get one down there. I mean, unfortunately, there are places in Michigan where that shit goes.
Yeah. We're in a crooked ass state, but again, the prosecutor can't. So it's just waiting out that time frame if there is one now, and it is, it stands. So
here's the beauty of having a gigantic marijuana law section of the State Bar Association in Michigan here. They got like 700, I think, plus members last time I looked, or last time I was told. So that means when one of them has a success, there's an easy vehicle for all the criminal defense attorneys covering the subject to get that data and get that information. And so now, it's not like it's going to take a while for Lenawee County to be able to pick up on something like this, or Schoolcraft County in the Upper Peninsula. No, everybody gets it right away. It's
good. It's
domino effect.
Notice to all prosecutors. Yeah.
Oh man.
I was going to take this week and make sure that my old PO got it, just so she knew that all my friends were going to start dropping dirty.
Yeah. Oh, that's quality. So I saw on Facebook you celebrated by hitting some powder. Then is that right?
I went up to Mount Bohemia, and it's one of my favorite places to get away. There's still no cell signal. It's really rare. I'm still really big on disconnecting. I work a lot. I get a lot of energy draw. I'm an empath, so I feel the patients that I work with. Being in our situation, sometimes it's almost like dealing with a new PTSD situation every day. When we're dealing with patients that are truly like we're trying to help them, and they're they still die. They still, there's still things going on that we can't deal with. So it's just being able to disconnect. On the way back though, I did start a Facebook fundraiser, and then last night I did put up a GoFundMe that I started sharing. Comorn has been really great about working with me this last year, especially with COVID and all the changes in the court system and having to go on Zoom. He's really been great with reducing his fees, but the guy still has a team of people that have had to do a lot of work on this case. I've given him a little bit of money, but I still owe him a fair amount. So I just got to do that plug that it is out there.
Where can people find it?
There's a GoFundMe page that's on my Facebook and Instagram. There's a link under my Instagram profile for the GoFundMe. And then I'm going to start sharing that. I just put it up last night, and today I've been kind of busy. So I'm going to start sharing that more so this week, the both of them, and see if we can get that goal. It started out really strong. We've had 55 people donate. I put it up as like if all my 5,000 followers donated $2, we'd be there. It is a $10,000 cap, but it is all going to them legal fees.
I'm going to start to consider giving $2.
Oh, Jamie, thank you.
There you go.
Well, I can tell you just a little secret. Shh, don't tell anybody. But last night at Michigan Normal's board meeting, we decided to donate some money to your fund. Shh, don't tell anybody.
Thank you. I know Brad was huge.
$2.
That up. Brad Forrester. He was one of the first people with Melody Carr that I met. I walked in to see Dr. Eisenbud in Southfield, Detroit.
Oh my God, that's a name from
January of 2009, right?
Oh.
When it went legal. And I've watched the whole road, and I've been here fighting every step of the way. Like, I've got friends that still say, I remember when you told us in prison that you were going to get out and you were going to do this. And, and I've stuck to it. Like, it's my passion. This is my church. Though I have a little bit of a bad background, some of you might know, though, I was also raised in the church. My dad's a preacher. I traveled as a youth evangelist. So this really has become my ministry, my mission, my outreach. Cannabis at a very young age saved my life. It took a lot away from me for the first 11 years of my adult life. But because of activists and people like Jamie and Rick and Tim Beck and Charles Ream and countless other individuals, that these laws have changed and they've saved for me, they've saved my life. They've changed my life. It's been able to give me a profession that I really believe in and that I support and I'm passionate about. And my whole goal has always been to fight the system, to change. I've dealt firsthand with the corrupt systems since I was 17, just getting beat up and not having money to be properly represented. You get railroaded. When I walked in there with Camorn this time, heads turned, things were different. The way the judge talked to me last time versus the way the judge talked to me when I walked in there with him was completely different demeanors in the courtroom, versus from representing yourself. So, or having a public defender. So, they're attorneys that can be costly, but they definitely are worth the money and they can change the outcome significantly.
Yeah, I want to say, speaking of awesome attorneys, I texted a couple, Camorn himself and David Rudoy in Royal Oak, Rudoy Law, and they both text me back and say, yes, it does apply to people on bond.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I hope that helps
Rudio
one of our
has
listeners.
And David Rudio has been great for the cannabis community. He's had some really influential decisions and has been a great fighter.
Rudio's a good dude.
Yeah, and obviously on hand to answer a question like this for us and when we need it, and that's also very cool. Been a big part of.
He's still on his honeymoon. He's still on his honeymoon, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's back. He's back and rocking. He was in court.
They were in
right away as soon as he got back.
Roses in their teeth, with their feet and bathed in water with little fish and stuff. They were just living it up. I was so jealous, but you're always happy for people that find their true soulmate, and it certainly seems like he and Kayla have made rights that we've been around them for a long time. Mm-hmm. They've been good to each other.
Good people.
Yeah. He is. We have a nice little community, legal community too, in the activism movement.
Which we're lucky, because that's really key to us being able to get these changes done and these laws passed. If we didn't have a good set of a legal team that actually donated and gave up some of their time to help, we'd be fighting round and round to get it done ourselves. It'd be almost impossible.
Michael, haven't you been in situations like talking to city councils where you say one thing and they're like, bleh, and then a lawyer steps up and says exactly the same goddamn thing you just said, and they're like, oh, oftentimes it's not what you're saying, it's who's delivering the message that determines whether it's received properly. And sometimes you just need lawyers, and if they're not willing to show up, you're screwed.
Oh, yeah. Man. 100%. You just need a lawyer nowadays. Like, it's a joke to even go in there and hope you defend yourself. Like, yeah, right. Like, unfortunately, and that you shouldn't think like that. It shouldn't be like that.
Well, it shouldn't be like that. And they make the law library available. And I will say, if you start citing law like you're an attorney, their demeanor will change. If you really know what you're talking about, they will take you a little bit more seriously. There's a few times that I've really got myself out of some situations, and I've had even state cops come down and tell another state cop that they were working with, like, don't question him, he knows the law, like, he's good, because they know that we know the law better than them when you start citing it off, right? Like, we've given this money to train the police, but has it ever happened? Have they ever used money to actually educate the law instead of just using it to raid us and enforce the law? I mean, that's in the law. Like, they were supposed to be educated. I don't think it's ever happened.
Well, I'd like to think that doctors are supposed to be educated on the cannabis advancements, and I don't think they are. Nurses are not. I mean, continuing medical education credits are required, but not necessarily in cannabis. And I think we have a lot of healthcare providers that are behind the eight ball when it comes to that, as well as our law enforcement officials and people at Child Protective Services and people that adjudicate things at a city level. There's a lot of people that are just not where they need to be as far as being updated on what the laws are and what cannabis actually does for society, too.
Meanwhile, you'll still see things like Marinol being prescribed.
Yeah.
It does all the same things, but we can tax it.
Well, and that was exactly my loophole right away. When the judge told me that I had to quit, I told him in court, I said, I'll try. It was December 20th. No way. And I really considered turning myself in for 30 days and being over it. Like, I really did consider it. Like, I'm like, no, I'm not going to jail for the holidays. Like, I'll try. Maybe the first year I'll set everything up and go do the 30 days. And then I got out of court and I got to thinking about it. You know, obviously I called my doctor. I said, you have all my medical history on file. I said, I want you to look up Marinol. What are all of their improved implications? So everything that it's approved to prescribe it for. Well, spinal stenosis has been recently been studied with Marinol for pain treatment. I have spinal stenosis. It's on paperwork. It's documented. I don't have to fabricate or make anything up or tell a story. Like, it's been documented on paper. So I said, send that script over for me. And, you know, I asked him if he could send that to the pharmacy for me, and he did. And he had every ethical right to do it because it had been being, you know, looked at as the treatment for that. We recommend medical marijuana anyways. He's wrote my scripts. So we did it. So I walked in to go report for my first probation meeting, and I handed her the prescription for Marinol. I said, here, you can take this up with the judge. I said, this is an FDA approved drug and there's nothing you can do about it. So we go, like, it goes to the judge, and in the little court transcript, like, head probation lady, she's like, it will make him drop dirty for THC. So the judge approved Marinol and knew I would drop dirty for THC, but denied my motion to use medical marijuana in the plant form.
Stupid.
The logic
What?
doesn't.
How could they?
Doesn't add up.
Listen, you expect, you know, marijuana to be used with logic with these people, then it's really frustrating.
Not at
It's a
all.
problem,
Because
man.
it's not FDA
Hey, so-
approved. Like,
Yeah, because FDA,
like no, I mean
DEA
that's my
approved
whole
drug,
point.
good for the judge. Cannabis not, exactly. So, Mike, is it true that in the Marinol labeling or warnings, it discusses, like, make sure you know how it works with you before driving, or something more along those lines than just don't drive while using it, or something like that, you know?
Yeah, and there's the long implications of that they print with every pharmaceutical, and the possible side effects and the BS that can come with it. But you know, all it is synthetic THC dipped with sesame oil. That's lab made THC and sesame.
100% THC.
So even though you could have used any really awesome cannabis that you may have had available to you, and it would have looked the same on the test, you were stuck having to use that Marinol.
No, I never quit smoking.
I know.
I think I got the loophole.
And by time
how can they fucking prove this?
they can't, they can't. Even right now, they're fighting over whether hemp should be, you know, the hemp is going to metabolize the same way as THC and create these metabolites that drug testing should basically just be thrown out because hemp's a legal product now. They can't tell the difference. It's science. They can't tell the difference. So when I finally went in and had the motion to appeal, the motion to use medical cannabis, you know, the judge denied it, but Camorn ended up in the judge's chambers arguing with him and the prosecutor for like 15 minutes behind the scene. And they come back out and they called me up to the bench, and the judge says, well, all your drug tests have been right about the same levels. They've all had the same levels. He says, and we're going to obtain that to the Marinol pills are in your system and they're working. And we're going to allow you to use the Marinol, right? So, like, at that point, I wasn't going to get violated anymore for dropping dirty.
So did you
smoke, and I smoked the same amount of weed every day.
Did you have to fill the script?
You had to keep the numbers up.
I did fill the script, and I did try it. I wanted to see what it would be like. You know, I wanted to see if they did take me to court. Like, if they called the pharmacy, I wanted them to at least see that I had picked it up.
It's expensive, isn't it?
So
It wasn't too bad. I used a discount card, and it wasn't too bad. It is a little costly though, but it's come down significantly from where it was at before.